Every few years, a new technology, piece of equipment, or device appears within the high-end audio space that shakes things up and leaves a watershed moment on headphone history. In 1979, it was the Stax SR Lambda, the first headphone to ever offer something actually resembling linear tonal response. In 1989, Sony proved that high-end audio wasn't limited to open-back design with the very much closed-back MDR R10. In 1991, Sennheiser established the legendary comfortable middle ground benchmark and the foundation of the HD600 series, their HD 580 Precision. Now, I don't have the clairvoyance to predict whether the Aether will go down in history, spawn a legacy, or change the audio industry forever, but I think it damn well should. This may well be the most important IEM yet made. This sample was sent by Kiwi Ears for the purpose of this review. Kiwi Ears has opted for a more rounded design for the 3D printed shells of the Aether, adorned with milled aluminium and glittery resin faceplates. The housings feature metal nozzles at 6.4mm, one ear side vent, and 3 forward-facing vents. Despite the extra venting, I didn't notice any particular interference from wind, but neither did I find these any less isolating than the average IEM, which was at least a welcome relief. I didn't have any problem with the ergonomics, however they don't provide the most snug fit either. I think as long as you're not averse to larger housings, these should provide a relatively easy wearing experience. Housed within the shells are one of the largest planar drivers ever produced for a closed type in-ear monitor out of China at 15.3mm. They are also sensitive enough to be driven directly from a smartphone without the assistance of a dongle DAC amplifier. The cable is fantastic. It's pliable, doesn't retain memory, and fits the aesthetic. It's also thicker than average, so it doesn't tangle as easily as even the KE4 cable, for example. The new and improved carry case arrives in a timely manner for the first new IEMs of 2025, and the cherry on top is the new inclusion of 3 different sets of ear tips to ensure the best fit is found. So, how does it sound? There's only one way to describe the way my ears hear this IEM. It is a reference model. I hate to use such an overly abused term, but every so often it's important to re-establish personal or public benchmarks that the masses vastly agree upon. Sometimes there are headphones that absolutely deserve such attention, but simply fall out of the mainstream due to a lack of interest, bad marketing, or one bad review from a prolific journalist. I hope this won't be one such case, as for the first time in my life I find myself listening to an in-ear monitor that not only presents audio without any one singular frequency or tonal band reaching out for attention or shying away, but does so without making significant compromise. It feels like, for once, the marketing team actually didn't lie. This is what Kiwi Ears had to say about the Aether. Its studio-tuned sound signature provides a clean sub-bass response, flat mid-range, and a natural treble peak for clear, balanced audio. I can only fully agree. For lack of a better word, the Aether sounds neutral, but not in the way the AKG K612 Pro or Hi-Fi Man Sasvara sounds neutral, and the way they suck all the joy out of the music. The Aether serves up every single part of the music on equal terms, with just a hint of smoothness and an uncommonly large soundstage. It just sounds right. Let's look at some comparisons. The Kiwi Ears KE4, the darling of the so-called meta-tuning, pales against the uncontaminated purity reproduced by the Aether. The upper mid-range and treble particularly suffers from some unwanted tonal characteristics that some might describe as BA timbre, with a slightly plastic quality. The Kiwi Ears Orchestra Lite continues to wow me with its slightly holographic imaging, seductively hyper-realistic presentation of mid-range, and superb isolation, but we know it's not a reference tuning. The Aether more than confirms this. And finally, the Hi-Fi Man AG500. The Aether reminds me most of the qualities I enjoy with my personal reference headphone, a modified Hi-Fi-Man HE500. In fact, switching between these two, I detect only an incremental increase in warmth in my Hi-Fi-Man, which I should mention is also modified, so it is more linear, a touch warmer, and with smoother treble than a stock HE500. The uncanniness of overall timbre and tonality between these two is ridiculous, with the Aether falling only slightly behind, where treble sounds like cymbals are incrementally darker and weightier than the HE500. In a time where truly high-end personal audio has never been so competitive, expensive, and littered with some quite frankly laughably bad offerings, the Kiwi Ears Aether is an oasis of sanity. At $169, this is truly the first people's reference IEM, not hindered by poor build quality, awkward design decisions, or restricted imaging and soundstage, and I believe it will become a benchmark for many IEM enthusiasts. I really wonder if the big companies are ever going to respond, because the Chinese IEM industry overtook the consumer portion around 15 years ago and have been doing nothing but sprinting ahead ever since, and now it seems the rest of the industry can't keep up. As a final footnote, I feel like I need to add that these are just my opinions and you don't have to agree with them. There are also people out there who actually enjoy the Biodynamic DT990 Pro or the Bowers & Wilkins P9, so while enjoyers of these obviously inferior headphones might not quite be the Aether's target audience, anyone who appreciates the kind of truly rare neutral tunings offered by a select few high-end planars, a handful of electrostatics, and even fewer dynamic headphones, then the Aether should be one for serious consideration at any starting budget. The Aether receives my absolute fullest recommendation. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.